Okay. Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Pushing the Limits. Today, I have a friend, an ultra running friend, who just happens to be one of I think the most leading longevity scientist in the world, Bill Andrews. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bill.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. We did it 6 years ago. I'm glad to be back on your show again.
That's really, really exciting. So, Bill, let's tell the people a little bit about our backstory and why we how do I know such a famous person? You have a wonderful wife, Molly. Shout out to Molly. And Molly and I are friends from way back doing ultra marathons in the Himalayas. Thanks to you, actually. I went over there, you and Molly.
All right, I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you did a race in the Himalayas, and you're a crazy ultra marathon runner. Tell us about La Ultra and doing that race over there a little bit.
Well, I've been running. I'm just a fanatic. I've been running my whole life, but I guess I did my first ultra marathon in 1997, and then no, and sorry, 1996. At the end of 1996, and then 1997. I just got so obsessed. I ran 50-mile races like almost once a week. Then later found out I broke a world record for the most 50-mile races run in 1 year. Uh, so the next year I started running 100-mile races. And then at the end of that year, I found out I broke the record for that too. Most 100-mile races run in 1 year. I just obsessed with it. Was too much fun. I just think ultra marathon running, if you do it slow and have fun, don't be somebody who's crossing finish lines on your hands and knees throwing up. It's really good for you. But I just got really obsessed with. I wanted to do all the adventure ones. So the thing that drives me is the adventure. So um, now I met my wife. I met her at a race, and she was very interested in getting into ultras, and then she just blew the field away. I felt like I was her mentor at first, but she just got into it so much that she just took over. She ran a lot of the races that I did, like the Badwater race, which is a torturous race at
Yeah,
130.
it was fun.
Yeah, you've done it too. That's right.
Yeah. A couple of
Yeah,
times.
but then she got this letter from a guy in India. It's saying that his name is Rajet Jalkon, but he said he was developing a race that the Indian government said was impossible. Okay, and that was a race that was going to run over an 18,000-foot peak, and I converting into kilometers is not my best thing, but I think that's about 5,000.
222. Yeah, so it was 5,700 meters roughly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the lowest point of the race was going to be 11,000 feet.
Yep, 3.6. Yeah.
So, and he said, would you like to be in the race? And she says, oh yes, absolutely. I couldn't possibly miss this. Okay, well, so he invited a whole bunch of other people, and they all said no, but she told me about the race, and I said, oh, I want to do it too. So for a while, she and I were the only people in the world that had agreed to sign up for this race. Nobody had ever done it. Indian government said it was impossible. Then a third person signed up.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah, Mark Cobain in England. And so we all went there. On day one, the starting the race, there was only 3 people at the starting line: me, Molly, and Mark. And I'll tell you, it was the most adventuresome thing ever. Molly and I had a commitment ceremony at the 18,000 foot. Oh, I forgot to. After we signed up, Rajet made the course tougher by including a second 18,000 foot peak.
Yeah. Don't forget the second one. That nearly killed me.
Yeah. Well, but on the first one, Molly and I had this commitment ceremony, which was really great. And plus, there was a documentary film crew going along that was filming it all, and they got included that. So I think you're in a documentary too on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I have made a doco on it. I did it the following year. I did it a year after you guys did it the first time. And then Molly came back and ran it again with me. And because you both had some medical adventures on the first time. So you went back
And
afterwards and did it
I came
again.
back the following year and finished it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I ended up having a gallbladder attack at 50 miles. So after I'd already gone over the first 18,000-foot peak, I had a
Oh,
gallbladder attack. They took me to the hospital. I had to be airlifted to Delhi, where I spent 2 weeks. And my doctors here wouldn't let me do the surgery, so they flew me here and I had the surgery done here. But Molly didn't find out that I was having this trouble until she was over 100 miles into the race, just climbing the second peak, when the race director told her. And she dropped.
yeah.
She
Well, as you would.
couldn't continue knowing that I was in this trouble. They didn't know at the time what was wrong with me. She was afraid it was altitude sickness. And she had already been in the hospital because her crew lost her. She got dehydrated. They had to go take her to the hospital. And the guy in the hospital bed next to her died from altitude sickness.
Yeah.
So
It was that serious, guys.
yeah, so she couldn't go on with the race. She was afraid I had altitude sickness, so she dropped from the race, and then she and I flew to Delhi together, and that's where I was diagnosed with having a gallbladder attack, not
Not
altitude.
altitude. And this was, I mean, this was extreme. I mean, the following year, Molly came back and we ran it together. And, it was hell. Like I really struggled with that race. I've done a lot, but that one was pretty tough.
There wouldn't have been a second race if Mark Cobain had
No,
not.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
someone did it.
the documentary has him being interviewed. He thought he was going to die.
Yeah.
He literally thought he was going to die. This was wrong. He said, "This is going to die." But it's a very tough race. But I'll tell you, I'm sure glad that Molly went back and finished it. Then I went back and finished it, and we both had that on our record. I'm still the oldest person to ever have finished it.
Wow. And I was the second woman to cross the finish line. Sharon Gator beat me on that year. I was trying to be the first, right? And Molly was not far behind me.
Molly was the first American woman.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was the first Kiwi. But it was one hell of an adventure. Not one I particularly want to repeat because I did struggle.
Oh, I can't wait to go back. I wish I'm upset they terminated the race, but I just been so busy. I haven't had a chance to go back.
Yeah,
But I still,
there's too much to do in this world too, and that brings us to the topic of today because Bill is the most amazing ultra marathon runner, and Bill is 71 years old and still running
72,
ultras.
72.
72 now. Oh, crikey! And you were going to be setting a record in October. Did you do that record?
No, it was October, so not last October, but the October before.
Yeah.
And the weather report said blizzards during the goal was to go break a world record,
Yeah.
not just do the race. And it was going to be a flat, very boring race, no hills, no adventure. But at least it wasn't 400 times around a track.
Yeah.
This was going to be a flat race that was like, I think 12 and a half miles out, turn around, come back, 12 and a half miles out the other direction, come back. That'd be 50 miles, and then do that twice.
Wow.
Okay. When I heard that there was going to be a blizzard, I decided, no, there's no way I'm going to break the world record during the blizzard.
Yeah.
And so I canceled. And I thought I'd do it next year. And then I broke my arm. Then I broke my arm 2 weeks before the race. And so I've missed it twice now. But
You'll have to do it.
Both years.
You'll have to do it for the 80-year-olds when you get to 80, do the world record for the 80-year-olds doing it.
10, 100. I'm planning on breaking all those records.
Yeah, exactly. So that brings us to the topic of today. So Dr. Bill is he is inventor of the year in 1997, I believe. You're the discoverer of telomerase, which is a enzyme that lengthens telomeres. He's a telomere scientist. We're going to be talking today about longevity, telomeres, gene therapies, all of that sort of stuff. Dr. Bill, can you give us a little bit of a brief background on, you've been in the longevity space forever since you were a kid. your dad put you onto this basically from the age of 10 or something silly.
Yes.
Um, how did you get here, and what are you, what are you most known for?
Well, I got here because my father put the seed in my head, which I think we discussed at my last interview. Um, and my father was essentially my partner in all this until he passed away from Alzheimer's in 2015. But the uh, I was obsessed all through high school, college, everything about aging, and none of the theories made sense. I studied a lot of evolution, what evolutionary biologists were saying about how we age, why we age, all that kind of stuff. Even what is aging, and I just never could agree with anybody. I felt like, they didn't have the background that I did with, statistical theory and logic and just common sense, kind of like an experimental design and things like that. And my understanding of genetics and gene expression and stuff like that. So I was able to put together my own ideas and disagree with everybody, but they were still like, I couldn't figure out ways to fulfill my ideas. Okay, for starters, I've never believed that aging was something that was caused by the environment. Okay, well, environment is a cause of aging, but I'll come back to this. There's a reason why it shouldn't be causing us to age. But I decided that there had to be something like ride tickets in an amusement park,
Yeah.
which did I talk about last time? Okay,
Yeah. No, that's a good analogy though for people, I think, to hear. Yeah. So yeah, we have these rides on that we have a certain amount of replications of our DNA that we can go through before we reach the Hayflick limit, basically.
yes. So my question was always, well, what are these ride tickets? Where are they? And so when I heard a guy named Calvin Harley talk about telomeres in 1993, and he talked about how they shortened every time a cell divided, I said, this is it. This is the only thing that's ever occurred, and still the only thing that's ever occurred that could explain these ride tickets. So I just jumped ship from where I was doing cancer research, heart disease research, inflammation research, and I just jumped ship and started working with him on aging. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm still working on cancer, heart disease, inflammation. It's just because they're all caused by aging.
Yep.
But the real cause, let me come back to what I said before. The real cause of aging is let's say the first step of aging is wear and tear from all kinds of things. All the hallmarks of aging, except one, is really examples of wear and tear. Environments, wear and tear, things you do to your body, smoking, bad habits, bad lifestyle, bad genetics, all these things cause wear and tear. But why would that cause us to age? Okay, because we have other cells that can always divide to replace the worn and torn cells. Okay, so that always bothered me. That's why when I first heard, and I heard about it in the 1970s, but it was discovered in the 1960s by Leonard Hayflick that our cells can only divide a limited number of times. And I said, well, that's got to be it. Okay, so why they only divided a limited number of times, I didn't know, but I knew now that's why we age, because cells can no longer replace the lost, worn, and torn cells when needed. And so the thing was, we could either solve all the thousands of things that cause wear and tear, which is what most scientists are doing one at a time, and that's why it's going to take a gazillion years before we're aging. Or we could solve that one problem of why can't our cells replace the worn and torn cells indefinitely? And if we could solve that problem, I believe we would totally stop aging. So Hayflick limit, I learned about Leonard Hayflick. Question was why? That's why I came up with these ride tickets at an amusement park. How could a cell have a mechanism that could keep track of how many times it has divided, how many times can it divide still? How many times left did it have to divide? So, I mean, thinking about everything I know about biochemistry and the biology of a cell. How could a cell count? You know, how could a cell know? And ride tickets in an amusement park was the only way that made sense. And then when I heard about telomeres, and I realized there's those ride tickets, that's been my obsession ever since. So I went to work with this guy who talked about it. They had told me that they'd been working for years trying to figure out ways of preventing telomere shortening or lengthening telomeres. They had zero success. And I just was pretty bold, and I just said, let me come and work for you, and I'll have it figured out in 3 months. I probably said this before at the last thing, but I had already been a major player in the development of many biotech breakthroughs like human growth hormone, tissue plasminogen activator, beta seron, thrombomodulin, osteoinductive factor, on and on. I'm
Wow.
I'm an inventor of many cancer drugs, anti-inflammatory drugs, heart disease drugs, and as a result, I became well known back then as somebody that was making things happen when nobody else could make it happen. So he hired me practically on the spot, probably shortest job interview ever. And he didn't believe I'd have it in 3 months, but yeah, 3 months later, I had discovered that the enzyme telomerase was the thing that was preventing our telomeres from shortening in our reproductive cells.
Yeah.
Okay, and I should let me go back to that. Okay, so the first really big concern was if cells only have a limited number of times they can divide, why is it our children who come from our reproductive cells are born younger than we are?
Mm.
They're, how come this number of cell divisions is reset with them? Well, it's not reset. There's never counted. There's no counting. They don't lose the count. So like every time a cell divides in our reproductive cells, which is also called our germline cells, there is no ticket ripped off. Okay. So they have unlimited number of cells. So why is that? And so I led the research that discovered the enzyme telomerase. I worked with a team of people. I was actually the person that figured out, that was hands-on, identified it, but I can't say that I did it alone. I worked with a team of people who gave me data to analyze. And but we discovered this enzyme telomerase, and then we put it into normal skin cells grown in a petri dish and showed that they divided indefinitely.
Wow.
We
Immortal.
called it immortal, but they weren't really immortal. But the scientific definition of immortal just suddenly meant overcoming the Hayflick limit.
Yep.
They could divide and divide and divide, but if you poured acid into the petri dish, they die.
Yep.
So they aren't really immortal. But so then we also, like practically same week, I also did an experiment where I produced what I called the antisense of telomerase, and I put that into cells, and I showed that it killed every cancer cell. Killed the cancer cells by essentially making them die of old age.
So the telomeres would shorten on the cancer cells, which is the problem with cancer cells. They don't. Yeah.
Well, so Geron Corporation decided there's a quicker return on investment by curing cancer than curing aging.
Yeah.
And even though I argued that it would never cure cancer, because by inhibiting telomerase, you're going to get the telomeres really short. It's going to make the mutation rates skyrocket, and the cancers are always going to come back.
And stronger, probably. Yeah.
And that, right, harder to fight. And that's exactly what's happening. But I did invent 3 different drugs that are in clinical studies now that inhibit telomerase to fight the cancer. And in the clinical studies, they're finding that the cancers do always come back.
Yeah.
Because
that's the problem with chemo in general, isn't it?
Yeah. But when they decided to focus totally on cancer and stop aging, even though their name Geron was short for gerontology, which is study of aging, they decided to quit working on aging. I left and started Sierra Sciences to focus on the anti-aging. And a few other scientists did the same thing, like Dr. Michael West and others. They went on to pursue the aging instead of the cancer. And so I've been now focused for the last 23 years on trying to find a way to produce telomerase in all of our cells, not just our reproductive cells. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so one of the scientists that I was working with after I left Geron, he grew human skin on the back of a mouse.
Oh yes, Ron DePino. Is that what that?
No, well, this was first Walter Funk.
Oh yes, yep.
Walter Funk, he grew skin on the back of a mouse. He treated with telomerase and showed with every method of measurement imaginable that the skin age reversed. And he was able to reverse the aging of skin on that human skin grown on the back of a mouse. Now, contrary to popular belief, mice do not age like humans. Okay?
No, they don't age through
telomeres and telomeres have nothing to do with mice aging. But Dr. Ron DePino created an engineered mouse that did age by telomere shortening. And then when he treated those mice with telomerase, they had what he quoted as a remarkable reversal of the aging process in an interview he did with Diane Sawyer on the news. I don't know if Diane Sawyer is well known in New Zealand.
No, I've watched the interview though. It was fascinating to see those
very
mice.
famous news broadcaster here in the United States.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, God, it's not going to be any trouble to find funding at all. And I was able to find funding long before the Ron DePino experiment. I ended up finding investors. Everybody, I was National Inventor of the Year for my cancer research. I did all these. I have so many clinical studies that I've been participating in and things like that. So I didn't have any trouble finding investors, but investors invest in the person, not the business. And all the investors looked at me as a way to make a lot of money. So they, instead of having me do what I want to do, they had me do what they want to do. And that was try to come up with products that would make them
money.
An investment. And then when we succeeded at doing that, first thing they want to do was sell the company. It just was a nightmare. The system doesn't work. Okay.
Yep.
One of the investors, I guess I shouldn't mention names of investors and stuff like that. One of the investors engineered, who was very interested in me doing the research I wanted to do, engineered a plan on how I was able to take over the entire company and become 100% owner. And now I am 100% owner. But I decided there's no way in the world I was going to let traditional investors get back. I didn't want financial return on investment to overwhelm
the humanitarian
reverse on return on investment. And so I've been focusing on getting products on the market by other companies. So I go-to-market partners. I started getting go-to-market partners instead of investors. I would license our discoveries to them. They would put it on the market and create products. And two of those companies are in New Zealand. Okay, that's One Truth 818 and Defy Time. But I also developed relationships with other go-to-market partners like Isogenics and Vasail and Labella and a few others. And so they would sell the products, then I would get a royalty, and I would use that to fund my research, and I had complete control of the research. So that solved that problem.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
But
Because you need to be the freedom of having, because yours is a mission to save billions of lives and to, slow the hands of time and to reverse aging, which is the biggest problem we have on the planet besides all the wars and stuff. But if you look at just the fact that we're all aging, we're all dying, this is the biggest frontier that there is, in my opinion. And why isn't everybody focusing on this? Because if we can, most people think we can't stop aging, we can't reverse it, we can't. When I talk to people about anti-aging, they think it's a skin cream. They don't understand that we have the scientists like yourself now that are actually doing stuff that is going to give us the ability to live, however long. I mean, you can still get run over by a bus, but you don't have to age, and most importantly, you don't have to have this horrible decline. And that's within our grasp now, if you can get to focus on the research and get the funding for the research, so that you can stay purely on that. So I totally get that model, and that it is a problem, when investors get involved.
the go-to-market partners were never able to produce the amount of funding that I did have, but I kept thinking, just bring in more and more and more, and I'll
Yep.
get more. And then the COVID pandemic started, and that hurt all their businesses, and my funding plummeted. I've been still trying to get more go-to-market partners, but I have not been. And then one of the key ones, the founder of Isogenics, passed away suddenly and unexpectedly, and then I lost the royalties from that because the company reorganized and decided that they were going to focus on a lot less expensive products, okay? Because it costs a lot of money to produce what I call telomerase inducers, okay? And so Isogenics was selling a product called Isogenesis that, and so was Vaseo. They were selling a product called Premier that, that actually was nutraceuticals that would get inside your cell, induce the production of telomerase, and lengthen telomeres. And I got to come back and explain why I got a lot younger because of that. But it was just expensive to make those products. And you know,
you've like screened like, well, last time I heard in the last interview, I think 600,000 molecules, both nutraceuticals and drug based products that you've looked at all of these molecules for telomerase activity, and you've actually found 900 odd of these.
Yeah, so far we found 900, not counting the nutraceuticals, but that's we found maybe 50 at the most now nutraceuticals that will do it. But I said I'd come back to why, even though these products are lengthening telomeres, why aren't people getting a lot younger? And that's because aging is like a tug of war going on inside your body, okay? And let's focus just on telomeres. You've got a tug of war where if you have, like in your reproductive cells, you have a tug of war where you have people pulling on a rope that are going to cause your telomeres to shorten. Then you also have people pulling on the other side that are causing your telomeres to lengthen. In our reproductive cells, that tug of war is a tie. Okay, the lengthening and shortening is the same, so the telomeres don't change in length. But as soon as we are conceived, okay, we lose all the people on the side that are pulling the length in our telomeres. Telomerase completely shuts off. Now it's just a one-sided tug of war, and they're pulling. Now, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add people back to the side to pull, but I haven't been able to add enough to win the tug of war. Okay, just slow it down. Okay, and so that's what the products that are on the market right now by all the different companies, they are slowing down, even though they're lengthening telomeres. So what happens during a cell division, telomeres shorten and then they lengthen. They shorten and they lengthen. Okay, so they are still shortening. Now we're just lengthening a little bit back.
Yeah.
Shorten again, lengthen a little bit back, but they're still losing that tug of war. They're just losing slower. What I want to do is I want to continue my research to find something that wins that tug of war. And I mean, you talked to Liz Parrish, okay, and she is running a company right now that is focused on gene therapy that is now a way to lengthen the telomeres, okay, to win that tug of war.
To actually win, like to actually 100% put back on what you're losing so that you're staying same and even growing telomeres?
Well, right. Yeah, but she's actually, she could. The problem is the dose. How much dose do you use? How delivery to all the cells, things like that.
Yep.
And it in my clinical protocols that I've written up for this, to get that right dose and to get the most number of cells treated as possible, it's essentially would cost me $1 million per dose. Okay, and just people haven't come forward with that amount of money. I can't tell you how many families I know who had relatives with Alzheimer's that were like billionaires that decided not to get treated with this gene therapy because they'd rather wait and see if it worked on somebody else. And then their relative with Alzheimer's died in the meantime. And it's just like crazy, but it's like it was an opportunity, but still we were never able to raise the funding to do that. But you know, I don't want to be somebody that cures just the wealthy. I want
No.
to cure it. And so my focus has been on trying to develop a nutraceutical or pharmaceutical that will only cost 10 cents to treat a person. And so that's the 600,000 different chemicals I screened. Most of those were designed. So we started with random chemicals. We found a lots that work. None of them won the total war, but we started designing them so they would get better and better and better. And we started extrapolating and found out that we were really only 1 to 3 years away from having something that would be as potent as the gene therapy.
Wow. Wow.
But then pandemic hit and everything like that, and we lost the funding. So we're still looking for that funding. And really,
so any billionaires out there listening, please,
yeah,
if you want the biggest mission on the planet, and I think it's probably more important than going to Mars or something, this is what you should be investing in, because this is going to change all of us.
I've been talking to them forever, but you know, they all want control. They want 80% ownership of the company. They want to make quick return on investments, even though they're billionaires. I don't understand it.
They want more of more and more and more. Yeah, instead of actually investing in this mission for humankind, and actually, you know,
I've probably turned down investments from more billionaires than anybody in the world. Okay, just because I know from all my experience, been there, done that. I'm never going to get it cured if I have an investor that's controlling the science.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
I need to be in control of the science. And I just know that in 1 to 3 years, if I could do it. And what I estimate is it's probably going to, in the business plans that I have, which I don't call business plans because they're not geared towards return on investment, financial return on investment, at least. I call them strategic plans. So my strategic plans show that with $113 million, I could have a drug that would totally reverse aging, cure Alzheimer's, cure muscular dystrophy, cure ALS, cure multiple sclerosis, all these things in 3 years, okay, at the max. So it actually, when I extrapolate, I'm really good at math and statistics and things. I can extrapolation, I can show that the really 99% limits are 1 year to 3 years. Okay. And so I just need to find
You've got the track record to know it. That's the funny thing. Yeah.
And it's, I've got a track record of showing that I can make things done, get things done when nobody else can, over and over and over again. And I'm also been well known for somebody that is really good at budgeting time and expense. So I can tell you how much it costs, when it'll be done, and if the money is provided, it gets done at the cost that I said it would cost, and the amount of time I said it would take.
Wow.
And it's just the most frustrating thing ever. It's like I'm sitting here, I've got a 10,500-foot lab facility right behind, and the wall behind me is just beautiful labs, fully equipped. And they're practically ghost towns right now because I can't come up with the funding to get the research done.
Yeah, and this is
all go to those entertaining pretend scientists that have something that they promote that really is not going to cure aging at all. It's going to just maybe reverse one small part of the aging process.
Yep.
But whatever.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is, like, people in the way that we go after in modern medicine, we go after single diseases, but really this is going upstream of that and looking at the whole reason we get all of these diseases. And I wanted to discuss with you, because this is something that keeps coming up with telomerase is an enzyme that helps lengthen the telomeres. And there was, because of your research actually into the anti-cancer drugs that you invented, the rumor has come about that telomerase can induce cancer or could cause cancer. Why is that? Couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, it's because of hearsay. It's because of famous scientists that are famous, not because of their science, but because they are on the news a lot. And
Yeah,
stuff like that.
they know how to market.
Nobel Prize winners. So Nobel Prize winners that really don't understand why they got the Nobel Prize to begin with. That kind of thing. They say what sounds right, okay? And yes, 85 or 95% of all cancers produce telomeres, okay? Why? Because they want their aging cured too, okay? So the telomeres didn't cause the cancer. Cell first becomes a cancer by mutation. There's 100,000 different ways of causing a mutation that's going to turn a normal cell into a cancer cell. But that cancer cell is going to age just like anybody else ages. And because it's dividing faster, it's going to age and die of age sooner. So, but because the telomeres get really short as the cells are starting to divide really fast, the mutation rates skyrocket. Short telomeres cause mutation rates at higher rates than practically anything else, except direct radiation or something. So the mutations in these cancers cause all kinds of varieties to occur in the cancers. And some of these cancer cells end up figuring out a way to produce telomeres on their own. And it's usually by a mutation or a chromosome rearrangement. Suddenly, one of those cancer cells is producing telomerase. All of the other cancer cells die of old age, but that one cancer cell grows back and comes back. And that's when you get an immortal cancer, and that's the problem. But it was the lack of telomerase that caused the cancer to begin
in the first place. Yep.
The lack of telomerase that caused telomerase to be produced. And if those cells had already produced telomerase, they would have never become cancer to begin with, and they would have never been able to fight the chemotherapies that exist or the immune system. Our number one defense against cancer is our immune system, and our immune system is really good at it. But because of the mutation rates that occur in cancers, they can always find ways to evade the immune system. And that's the big tragedy. Now, there is a really good video on my website. It's called Tokyo 2017. I spoke for almost an hour just on why telomerase doesn't cause cancer. In fact, telomerase decreases the risk of cancer. I spoke for an hour. That was because the reason why I did this was I speak at continuing medical education conferences a lot. And there was a very high profile continuing medical education lecture that I was giving with 4 other doctors in Tokyo in 2017. And the night before, maybe 2 nights before my presentation, somebody got all over the news saying that telomerase causes cancer. And it was going to, like, here are already hundreds, maybe 1,000 doctors that already signed up to listen to me talk. I was really surprised because from the airport to the hotel, I saw billboards with my picture on it. Okay, wow. So this was a really high profile presentation. But suddenly everybody's rumors going around, oh, telomerase causes cancer. What's this Bill Andrews guy trying to do? So I spent all night rewriting my presentation. Wow. And so instead of being like 45 minutes long, it went 1 hour and 20 minutes long, because about an hour I spend going over all the data, everything about why there's such a rumor, things like that. I strongly encourage people to listen to it. I've said it so many times, I know exactly the time. If they start watching
at 25 minutes
on my website called Tokyo 2017, it starts at 25 minutes and 25 seconds where I say, okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent and talk about this rumor. And it goes to a little over an hour before I finally get back to the main subject. But that excerpt, it's maybe 45
So that puts that rumor to bed. And so anybody who wants, we will put the links in there, because we want to put that one to bed, because we need to move on from that. And it's the shortening of telomeres. Otherwise, why would we get a whole lot more cancers, Alzheimer's, all of these things when we're old? We don't get them at 10, 20, usually. Usually there's some childhood cancers that are the exceptions, but generally we get these things, they are diseases of aging. And that's partly because the telomeres have shortened and are causing the reading of the DNA, from how I understand it, to be faulty and cause these mutations in the DNA.
Exactly, exactly. You just described it very well. I can go into more details about how it changes the cell to give off declining aging, not just uh, organ failure. But there's videos on my website too where I go into great detail explaining that. In fact, I encourage you. There's videos on how we age, why we age, what aging is, and how to and how not to age.
And with telomeres, because we've got these, well, I don't know how many years now, 12, 14 hallmarks of aging. It keeps changing. But at the basis is telomere attrition, because everything else is sort of, well, we have to cure that one first in order to affect the other things. The others are mostly inflammation, oxidation, sort of downstream effects. I think the immune system is another one that, like, we in our company, Avum, we're going after the immunosenescence story to try to, but again, we have to solve the telomere problem if we're going to actually influence the rest of them. Would you agree with that?
That's exactly what I said before about wear and tear. All but telomere shortening is one of the hallmarks of aging. All the other ones are essentially things that cause wear and tear. And if we could keep the telomeres long, we wouldn't have to worry about the wear and tear, because we can always replace the worn and torn cells. And so it's like, Ron DePino, actually, this guy that I talked to about, he created those engineered mice. He actually did some other studies where he actually, I can't remember if it was published or just a press release, where he actually said telomeres are the kingpin of aging.
Yeah, that's a good.
And we've done a lot of studies here looking at biomarkers of aging and stuff like that. And we show that these biomarkers all get reversed by re-lengthening the telomeres in the human cells in the petri dish. So it might be that everything about the hallmarks of aging could all be gone away if we would just lengthen telomeres. But that may or may not be true. I wouldn't be surprised if it is very true. But the bottom line that is 100% true is that we will never cure aging unless we also solve the telomere shortening problem.
Exactly.
Because that's a mathematical, unquestionable, very reproducible cause of aging that any lab in the world that works on culturing cells knows that telomeres are shortening and puts a limit on the lifespan of the cells, therefore putting a limit on the lifespan of humans. And you can mathematically calculate from that that a human cannot possibly live beyond 125 years. And that's only if they have the perfect genetics and live the perfect lifestyle, which none of us do. So nobody's ever lived to be 125. But
And
we'll all live hundreds of years if we could solve the telomere shortening.
Exactly. So this is the crux of it, is being able. So when we go and we talk about longevity science, and we're all over these NAD precursors, and we're activating our sirtuins, and we're we're living the healthy lifestyle, we're doing our exercise. All of these things are going to help us live longer and healthier to a degree, but they're all downstream sort of. Still the band-aid approach rather than getting to the root cause of the problem, which is at the bottom of it is telomere attrition, the shortening of these telomeres. Is that and you've got telomerase inducers, like you said, we've got the gene therapies. Liz Parrish was on last week. She's had your gene therapy done on her, and she's one person, but she looks phenomenal. Like she's 53 or 52, and looks like 30. And I don't know whether that's just because she lives the perfect lifestyle, or has she because of these gene therapies that she's had. She's had a number of them.
We don't have really enough data. I think the only real test of curing aging is what I call the Betty White test. Unfortunately, Betty White passed away, so I still call it the Betty White test. And that's if we could come up with a cure for aging, and the only way to prove that it really is curing aging is to see somebody like Betty White, who everybody knows, who everybody knew, walk out on stage and look, feel, and behave like she's 25 again. Okay, and I don't care about DNA methylation or glycosylation of IgG molecules in the body, different telomere lengths, none of that means anything unless that person also passes the Betty White test. Okay, now Liz Parrish may have passed the Betty White test. Okay, I
She's
can't
looking
report it.
like it.
Well, it's like when she first got treated, I was a little worried about if it was done right and things like that. But I saw her at a A4M conference, and I was in a room, and I said, okay, she told me she was coming upstairs, and I said, okay, I'm going to have my eyes closed. I want you to walk in the room, and I'm going to open my eyes and give you my first impression. And she did. She walked in the room. I opened my eyes, and I said, oh, darn, you don't look younger. Okay. But that changed. That over the years afterwards, I started realizing, my God, she's
She's
there's
phenomenal. Yeah.
nothing where she's that age. I don't have any scientific data to support that. Okay.
Well,
It's just,
we've got measurements of telomeres. And
well, as I said, the telomeres, you can measure the telomeres, but that doesn't mean you pass the Betty White test. I want to see if she passed the Betty White test. And now she doesn't look any older than she did back then when she did the treatment. And she looks younger. Every time I see her, I'm shocked. She
yeah.
looks younger. But I
So does
do.
this take time? Like the genetic, you've done the gene therapy, but you don't like next day look like you've just been renewed.
We're venturing into the unknown.
Unknown. Yeah.
We don't know. Okay. When Ron DePinto did his experiments with the engineered mice, it took 3 weeks. Maybe it takes 3 months with humans before you start seeing anything. And maybe it's a slow progress. But what I want to do is I want to encourage people to support Liz Parrish and
Yeah,
her company.
me too. Mm.
Because, I do research, but I don't really market anything. I go to market partners. But I don't market anything. I think the cure for aging is going to come from everything Liz Parrish is going to do. She just needs more funding, more help. And believe me, if she gets funding, she's going to be providing me with funding to do my research, because I want to make certain that everything I discover goes into her hands and gets treated.
And she's so courageous. Like the courage that it takes to be the first human to take these things, and to experiment on your own body. And I really think it's like the power of a mother, because a mother who wants to fix her own child, and I get that, because like I'm a bit the same. So not my child, it's my mum. Like whatever it takes. And it takes people that are motivated like that to put their own bodies on the line for the good of humanity, the good of science, and in this case, hopefully, the good of a son, and eventually, because once again, if we can cure these things, we're going to have an impact on childhood diseases and genetic mutations and all these sorts of things that some kids are born with. And it's all going to have massive downstream effects. And so what I don't understand is why the hell is not everybody investing in these types of things now, the ones who can, like the billionaires of the world. Or is there something, like, do we not want to fix this? Like if I said to you, we can cure cancer tomorrow, everyone would be like, yeah, let's do it. You say,
Yeah.
Let's cure aging. And they're like, well, get off the grass, like that's not going to happen. Why do we have that?
Cancer, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, aging, all these things will not be cured tomorrow. It's going to take a few years. And the investors don't want to wait a few years before getting a return on investment. That's why cancer is not cured, is because every great scientist that has ever existed that decided to try to raise money to pursue their idea on how to cure aging, the investor steered them in a different direction. And also had them sign non-compete contracts and then took control, sold the companies out from under them after they had success at doing the other things. It's just a disaster. I know these people. I have lots of friends that are all interested in curing all these things. They've all did not succeed at what they wanted to do because the investor took control. What I say all the time is investors invest in the dream, but not the dream coming true. And that is a real big problem. That's why cancer is not cured. That's why heart disease is not cured. there's so many people out there super passionate about doing all this stuff, but curing these diseases, but they're not entertainers. They're not good at marketing themselves. They're just good at doing science, and investors just take advantage of them. And and the entertainers also take advantage, pretend entertainers, scientists. They take advantage of everybody else by steering all the right people in the wrong directions.
Yep. And you see, when you've been in the space a long time and you've been, you follow everybody, you can see it over and over again. The famous ones, no particular names here, but there's a lot of famous scientists who garner a lot of attention, who really haven't got the breakthroughs that they pretend to have, or they've cornered the market. But there's other people who've got no following. They're not famous on Instagram. They're not famous on YouTube. They're not famous anything, and they've actually got all the secrets. And they've actually got the stuff, and it's frustrating. And even as as a little entrepreneur over here in New Zealand, I know, like, with our company, I fight to maintain control of the company, because when you control it, I control the destiny of the company. When you have outside investors come in, it's not easy, because you reach a point where you're stuck. You keep reaching this upper glass ceiling, if you like, where it's a struggle to break through, but you sort of sell your soul, or you don't sell your soul, but it's very hard to keep control and keep control of your vision as well at the same time. And it's a struggle, I think, everywhere in business,
Well, let me say a few more things about Liz Parrish, because I truly believe she's the future. She's the secret. Okay. And one is she's the original biohacker. Okay. Now, people have done biohacking before, but she made biohacking famous by the fact that she went ahead and treated herself to do this thing, and made, worldwide renown. Everybody in the world became aware of it. But and now everybody's doing biohacking, and they're all doing it all wrong, and they're trying to fake it. They're saying, "Oh, I got younger by these biomarkers and things like that." There's some famous people making a lot of money, even some billionaires, claiming to have reversed their aging. But they look no younger to me at all. They have not passed the Betty White test at all. The other thing about Liz Parrish is she's not a scientist, but she knows more about the science of aging than most scientists in the field. That's truly amazing. Okay, I can talk with Liz Parrish about science, and I just can't believe how well she understands what I'm saying and how well she communicates it. One other thing, I could go forever. She is so passionate about people being happier and healthier that she's now started a campaign. She probably talked to you about this, but where here's a real problem. Okay, somebody's got a disease that's terminal. Okay, or they have a disease that just makes life not worth living. Okay, those people should be able to get treated with anything they want to try. Okay, but the rules in all countries, including the United States, don't allow it. Okay, and so there's, I've heard stories even from you.
Yeah, from me, my dad.
Having a patient in the hospital, you know what to do to treat that patient, but the hospital refuses to do it. Okay, that's wrong. Okay, so Liz Parrish went ahead and got a master's degree just to pursue that problem.
Yeah.
And she did her thesis on something she called best choice medicine. And it's all about changing the whole system so that the patients can choose, those patients that I just mentioned who are terminal or have a disease not worth living, they can choose whatever they want. Okay. So after she got her master's degree, and I actually read her master's thesis, I was blown away with how good it was. I mean, how does a person with her background know so much about science and business? And but
he's curious.
She wanted to make it turn into a publication, and so I co-wrote an article with her, and it's now published in a peer-reviewed journal that's called Best Choice Medicine. The title's a little bit longer, but you can search for it with my name and her name, find the paper, abbreviated BCM, but she is on a mission now to make it. She's not just trying, she's not interested in making money, either am I. Okay, our goals are to make everybody happier and healthier. She's on this mission to really get best choice medicine pushed through the government.
Yeah.
She's trying to get me to speak a lot more on it, but I'm so busy with the science, I can't do it. But I wish I could, because I support it so much. But she's not giving up. She's the pioneer.
Yeah, and I want to join her in that fight. I mean, down here, because I wanted to fight when my dad died, and my people know my story, and I shared that with on Liz's interview actually. I want to get the rules changed so that you have the right to try. You know, I called it the right to try, but it's the best choice. You should have the choice that if you're at the end of the road and there's no other options, and you've got something that could or may not work, and it's not voodoo crazy, why can't you do that? Why can't you have a go? Why couldn't I put intravenous vitamin C into my dad who was dying, and they were telling me it'll damage his kidneys? That was their argument. It'll damage his kidneys. I'm like, I think being dead damages the kidneys too. You know, where's the logic in that one?
Taylor Swift was just picked as the Times Person of the Year. But someday Liz Parrish is going to be that person. She's also going to be Nobel Prizes, everything like that. So I'm counting on her.
Yeah, and I think all the way I'm supporting her. I wish I could go and get the gene therapies right, you know, right now. But these are, and people say, well, they're only for rich people. And yeah, that's where it starts. And it starts with people like Liz who make stuff happen, and then they make it happen. But it will be democratized over time if we can scale. We've got to scale all of these things. We've got to start somewhere, you know.
The rich will save the poor, is what I always say. If Liz Parrish and I could get these clinical studies done to the level that we want them to, the proof of concept that would come out of that, when people saw, if we could have treated Betty White with gene therapies that Liz Parrish is doing at the right doses and the right ways and all the test measurements, and she walked out on stage looking 25, believe me, those prices of the gene therapy would drop. Research to develop other forms of doing the exact same thing that gene therapy does, but cheaper, would skyrocket, and we'd all be living in a whole better world. This is a whole different subject. There's people that believe it's going to make the world worse.
Oh yeah, well I've discussed that one on the show too, and that, you know, like we will come up, like you talked about the other day, Sir David Attenborough, you know, like he's at, I think 96 or something now, and he is a treasure trove of experience and information and knowledge and
IQ
reputation.
Of 10,000.
Yeah,
he's like amazing person. We can't lose him.
We can't lose him. We shouldn't lose him. And
we shouldn't have lost Betty White. We shouldn't have lost Betty White. We shouldn't have lost Michael Jackson. We shouldn't have lost Whitney Houston. There's so many people.
Yep.
I mean, some of them didn't die from aging, but there's still lengthening telomeres would have helped all of them. Okay.
And we preserve that knowledge base when we don't die. Like I said to Liz, like I'm 55. It's taken me a hell of a lot of time to get to the level that I'm at now, which is not amazing, but it's where it is. I've got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and what I meant to start declining now. You're 71. You've come to the pinnacle of 72, where you're at. 72. Yeah. And you've got all this incredible experience. Are you meant to start declining now? What a loss to the world. And then those brains that can maintain those brains, that's going to come to the good of, let's work out the big problems that we do have. And the population is going to decline. I mean, fertility rates are dropping through the floor. You know, we're not replacing ourselves. You talked briefly about your dream for robotic support for caregiving, because we were talking about caregiving.
We haven't even talked about that yet. Oh God. This is gonna last forever. I hope you're available.
Yeah, well, I want to have you on here, you know, regularly, because there are topics that we could cover in depth and go deeper into the science.
Can I just spend a minute talking about this robotic caregiving that you just mentioned. Okay, so most of the world doesn't know this. Japan is probably the country most aware of it. But we are, in the next few years, we are going to have so many people on the planet needing caregiving, mostly because of the baby boomers. So many people on the planet needing caregiving that we're not going to have enough people to take care of them. Okay, we're talking about way before 2050. Okay, and more like 2030. It's a urgent problem. It's called the silver tsunami. Okay, I speak about it a lot at continuing medical education conferences. We have to come up with a solution. I always say, well, the solution is to cure aging. That's not happening fast enough. We are going to be building and building and building a big mountain of people needing caregiving and nobody to take care of them.
Yep.
So what I want to do is I want to see a lot of money invested, put into developing robotic systems for caregiving and have them in-house, because you and I have both been at assisted living homes, hospices, nursing homes. People are very unhappy, very depressed being there because they're not with their families. We need to develop in-house robotic systems that care for the patients, provide them entertainment, provide them food, provide them medications, take them to the toilet, all this kind of stuff. So, and in home, so the family can come and see them and enjoy them and not have to worry about how miserable taking care of them is. I've seen so many people's plugs pulled because the relatives couldn't take it anymore. They reached the breaking point of taking care of their relatives.
I mean, I've been there. I've lived it.
In-house robotic caregiving is essential. We got to get people going. I don't care if I ever make a penny off of it, but I want to get movement towards that. I see a lot of robotic companies, but I don't see anybody focusing on this silver tsunami and caregiving problem.
Yeah, and I've been caregiving, for 8 years, and the last 3 years intensively, and it's a 24/7 job, and it, Bill, I'm pretty tough, right? I'm an ultramarathoner. I know how to push, and I know how to push hard, but there have been times when I have been absolutely broken because I'm not sleeping. You're at the for weeks and months on end. You're fighting in the medical system every day for your loved one. You are fighting to keep them at home. You are researching 24/7 sometimes to try to find the thing that you've missed.
I applaud you. I think you're amazing, because I think caregiving is the noblest of all professions, especially when you volunteer doing it. Okay, and it's like so important. And I mean, it's like there's so many people, and the caregiving facilities that exist now, they don't have enough money to pay proper people. And so elder abuse is so common in these things. And it's just a problem that we have to solve. And funding for caregiving has to be the top priority. And right now, robotics is one of the main places that funding should go. And while we wait for that to be developed, caregivers need to be paid more. Caregiving needs to be a profession that more people want to go do, and that do it can be selective in who they pick to be the caregivers.
Yep. And I know there's nobody that comes to help, and I have to pay if I need an hour off. And I've got 2 younger brothers that, one of them's taking mum for an hour now so that I can do this interview. But that's the daily, thing that you have to manage, all of those things. And that means that I'm not as effective as I would like to be, because I can't travel. I can't go to all these amazing conferences. I can't, pop over to Reno and see you, all of those sorts of things but I do that willingly. That's what you do, and that's what you should do. But it does mean that I'm not being as effective, right? Can
I say one other thing that's kind of sound odd, but Liz Parrish and I have been very vocal, saying all these kind of things all over the place, and we're not getting anywhere. But a very famous person one time said, "You're never a prophet in your own hometown."
Yeah.
I think he said, "You're never a prophet in your own village." Okay. Well, you are not part of my hometown. You are in New Zealand. I'm in the United States. I'm hoping that, and I hope that Liz is thinking the same thing. You could help us by promoting what we're saying elsewhere besides our own hometown. Okay,
Yep.
so I'm counting on you. I think you are the secret. I think Liz is the secret. I think we all have to work together, and I think you could be a major help in getting all this stuff done. And so spread the word to
I'm on the team. I'm on the team.
Australia, all this places that
Yeah.
is not my hometown.
And it is like inch by inch, you know, like, yeah, I'm not Elon Musk and I'm not Joe Rogan and I'm not, you know, but when we as, you know, little people, if you like, start to all get together and start to talk about this and start to share that, we can create these ground swells of movement, you know. And if we're all in it with the passion that you and I and Liz share, you can overcome things. I mean, when I looked back at my running career, the first time I ran a 10K race, my very, very first 10K race, I failed at the 5K mark. You know, I had to pull out with an asthma attack. Now, if I'd gone, oh, well, I'm a hopeless runner, I'm never going to run again, you know, I wouldn't have, you know, done all these hundreds of ultra marathons all around the world and had all the adventures that I'd had. So you've got to start small, you know, and you've got to just keep plugging and not give up and not go, oh, who am I to, you know, who am I to be doing this? You know, because you have those voices in your head, but you've got to overcome that and keep getting and build a team around you of people that are doing it. And one skill that I have is sharing these stories and interviewing amazing people and getting it out there. And, you know, I'm never going to be a scientist like you, but I can interview the scientists.
Maybe when you're 500 years old, you'll be the top scientist in the world. Who knows? Think of the opportunities that
Exactly.
Curing Aging provides. I mean, in a lot of my videos, I show this picture of when first contact from Star Trek First Contact.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And
you're
I always say I'm not afraid of dying. I wouldn't be an ultramarathon runner if I was afraid of dying, right? There's too many cliffs to fall off and things like that. But
wasted to die.
I'm afraid of missing out. And so I always say, I show this picture of, you know, with the I forget their actors' names, but I now know both
On
of them
Star
personally.
Trek.
But they shake hands, the Vulcan and the human shake hands. And I always say, when that happens, I want to be there. And all of a sudden I appear there as a three-way handshake. And that's it for me. I want to be there. I want to be there when we find life and intelligent life on other planets. I want to be there when we find non-intelligent life on other planets. But I also want when the origin of the universe and all of that gets figured out, I want to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's curing it. And you know, it's been an obsession my whole life. I'm working, I'd love to write a book if I had more time to write, but I'd love to do a book on something like curing aging, the what, why, how, and how not of aging, you know.
Yep.
Then also, and why is it taking so long, you know? And it's all that kind of stuff. It's like I could say so much, but I think these podcasts work a lot better than writing for me. Because
in a way they do, because, you know, like, and I can get you on lots of other podcasts, but because, you know, like when you share these stories and everyone has their little audience and their bigger audience and their bigger audience, and slowly it starts to get the word out, you know.
a podcast series.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely. Absolutely.
One on what is aging, then why we age, and how we age, and how not to age.
Deal.
Why? Let's do it. I'm up for it.
Okay, good. Right, I'll book you next week because we'll start with step number one, and we can, you know, you go deeper into the science, because today we've been talking about our ultramarathoning and our this and our that, and, you know, but I really would like to deeply understand the science. I want to go into gene therapies. I want to understand AAV and CMV and, you know, all of the delivery and the cytotoxic T cells and the, you know, all of that. Yeah, I mean, tell me.
Not only does Liz Parrish know the science better, she's actually come up with a whole new gene therapy, CMV. And I've been an advisor for a company. I'm just blown away with how well I think it's going to replace AA.
Really?
Okay. And it's Liz Parrish's idea. Okay, so
so this is how do you say it? Cytomegalovirus.
Cytomegalovirus, yes.
As opposed to the AAV, which is the delivery mechanism. adeno-associated virus. And that's so that if we just talk briefly on the gene therapy, the way that they get the genes in, the payload, if you like, into the cell is using these viruses that have been stripped of all their replicative machinery, but they allow the docking onto the cells to deliver the payload into the genes. Is that correct? Is that the way
They're essentially tamed viruses.
tamed
Okay.
viruses? Yeah.
We are now in control of the virus. We're just using their mechanisms to deliver things into the cells, nothing more. But the reason why the gene therapies that so far Liz has done on herself and that I'm trying to do clinical protocols are like $1 million a dose is because adeno-associated virus, AAV, its infectivity rate is incredibly low. But now CMV's infectivity rate is very high, and it has a lot of other advantages over AAV. And when I don't want to say if, when Liz can get this going to the level she wants to, that's going to make gene therapy infinitely less expensive.
Really?
Okay.
And the payload, you'll be able to mix the genetic therapies all into the one, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's the other benefit. She can put AAV has a limit on how much you can package inside the virus. Okay, the tame virus. CMV, its payload is way, way bigger. So you can do multiple genes at a time. It is this is so frustrating. The biggest problem with this thing is Liz Parrish is funding universities and stuff like that to work on this. University labs, they don't have time to do this. They have too many teaching requirements. They're writing grants and stuff like that. The work doesn't get done in universities. It's got to be investor funded businesses. That's the only way it's going to get done. And the investors got to stay out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
They can invest, stay out of the way, make their trillions of dollars later instead of their millions of dollars soon.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just so frustrating. Liz Parrish is running into that problem. I've already told Liz Parrish that if I could get all the funding that's needed, I would do all the work that needs to develop that CMV technology that she's invented here in my company. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's we could talk about this. This has been the Liz Parrish show, not the
well, we're both fans for a reason, because there are things like, that we've got follistatin, we've got the reverse transcriptase, your telomere gene therapy, we've got Clotho, which I'd love to have with mum. What was the other one? The
GC1F.
GPC1 alpha. GPC1 alpha, so mitochondrial biogenesis sort of a gene therapy to improve mitochondrial function. And if we could put them all into the one and deliver that into one and make that an affordable, approachable, and are there any risks, like with a gene therapy, there is, risk for cytotoxicity, cytotoxic T cell responses? Can we mitigate those sort of risks?
Yeah, that's my business. Okay, that's my expertise. Okay, so I've been involved in a lot of clinical studies. I've seen just terrible things happen because they do them wrong. Doctors don't practice on humans. Other people on animals. Other people practice on the animals, and then give it to the doctors to do on humans. They make mistakes after mistake after mistakes, and I've seen so much of this. I've written clinical protocols where I've covered all the risk factors. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why it's expensive. But cytotoxic T cell responses, that is the biggest problem. I'm amazed. I must have said that 6 years ago when we interviewed. But
I've done my research, Bill.
There are so many people that have died in clinical studies of gene therapies because of cytotoxic T cell responses, which is where your own body starts to decide that infected cells are now foreign cells and starts attacking your own body. But the reason why these people died is because the doctors weren't prepared for it, didn't test for the possibility. And if they had tested for the possibility, they would have known exactly what to do. My clinical protocols, I've got all these written out perfectly, and I insist on being the orchestrator. I'm not an MD, but I've been involved in a lot of clinical studies. I've seen a lot of major oops kind of problems where the doctor goes, oops, we forgot to do this or that, person dies. I want to be an orchestra leader and where I am got a checklist and I'm making certain that every single nurse, doctor, everybody involved in those clinical studies is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing and on time, so that later they don't say, oh, we forgot to do this or forgot to do that, and somebody dies as a result. So the safety should not be an issue. Almost every single person that dies in a clinical study dies because the doctor made a mistake. Okay, so
And the
it's not
other
going to happen.
problem with the gene therapies that has come up now and again is that it integrates into the actual gene and causes
Not CMV
cancer,
and not an
but
AAV.
not okay.
Yeah, so lentivirus, which is greatest gene therapy of all, integrates into the chromosome and can cause cancer. Okay, and so that's why it's only used ex vivo, and which means they take cells out of the body, treat those cells, and then verify that those cells haven't been integrated into a place that causes cancer, and then put those back into the people. And that doesn't help. But so lentivirus is a great gene therapy, but it's never going to actually be a really useful one for treating people because of the fact that it integrates into the chromosomes and causes cancer.
Yeah, and we've already got like I think it's 11 gene therapies that are approved in the States already for monogenic diseases. So this is something that's already been used for the last 10, 15 years already. But they're very, very high price tagged, aren't they?
The bubble boy disease was one of the very first things treated. And you know, I kind of like was watching this and I said, no, you can't do this. I mean, and I knew these kids would die. And then half of them did die from cancer. And it set gene therapy back a lot. But why were the doctors ignoring everything that all the scientists knew? Okay, any scientist that had been working on gene therapy in vitro in cells in a petri dish knew that these gene therapies were going to cause cancer. And the doctors went and treated these kids anyway. Okay, and the ones that didn't die of cancer did get cured. So the gene therapy did work, but it's still, the price was too high.
Yeah.
And
this has set the industry back quite considerably, but now we've moved on and we have ways to tackle those. There's
still a lot of mistakes. Still a lot of mistakes being made. Still, it's terrible. I just mentioned, animal studies is one way to go, but I don't even like killing animals in animal studies. I think animal studies should only be done if animals are going to benefit from the treatment, or have a chance of benefiting from the treatments. But we are talking about everything you and I have been talking about all day long is also true for our pets, especially dogs, cats, and horses, because we've already shown that dogs, cats, and horses age by telomere shortening. Where earlier I'd mentioned that mice don't.
Yep.
So we won't be able to help rabbits. We won't be able to help mice because rodents don't really age by telomere shortening. They do have some variation of telomere shortening, but it's nothing like what humans have. And then, I want to do all my preclinical studies, so animal studies, on pygmy marmosets because they're small, very close related to humans. They do age by telomere shortening, and we can tag them, treat them, let them loose, keep track of them. In the wild, they can live normal lives, and then we just keep track of like how long did they live, how did they die? When they do die, we find them, and what did they die of? Things like that.
Wow, that'd be amazing. And because we've already worked out too that things like lobsters and clams clams live up 500 years, and lobsters.
They've already solved the aging process.
They don't have this telomere problem, do they?
Well, yeah, they have telomeres produced in all their cells. They have no aging. They also they rarely get diseases. Everything's good. Okay, their main cause of death is predators. Lobsters, every time they shed their shell and get a new shell, they're a little bit bigger, makes them less and less able to hide from octopus, which is their main predator. But mussels, you can not, so none of the animals have like rings on a tree, that you can count, but except clams. clams, every year, clams get a new stripe. When people start counting these stripes, they have found clams that are over 500 years old.
Crazy.
Okay. And all because they have telomeres produced in all their cells. They don't have telomere shortening. They never get cancer. They never get diseases. It's just why that alone hasn't made it so that in that Tokyo 2017 video, I talk a lot about that. Why that alone hasn't encouraged people to start, let's be more like lobsters.
Let's be more like clams and live to 500 years and not get any of these horrible diseases. And we've got, you know, like you said, you've got some gene induction and some nutraceuticals and drugs that are actually out on the market now. They're not going to completely stop it, but they're going to slow the process down. So, you know, yeah, and I want to have talked to your team about those, you know, the people that you have go to market partners, because not readily available still, you know, it's still like it's out on the market, but not even people know about it, and that needs to change, you know. So
now, why they don't know about it, because they're doing everything they can. Marketing is so expensive and
yeah,
it is so
hard.
difficult to do. And even when you have something to work, yeah, I'm going to introduce you to a guy named Christian Chase. Okay. He's the guy to talk to.
Yeah,
okay.
no, that's going to be exciting. So, Dr. Bill, we'll rebook in next week when you've got time for the actual science side of things, and you pick a topic, and we'll go for it. You know, and do a series of these things on the actual science behind all of this, so that people can really get a deep understanding of it, and then get that out there in the world.
Okay.
That sounds absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. I think we've run out of things to talk about, especially now that we're talking about doing a series of podcasts. I'll prepare for all those.
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely brilliant. I will put all the links to Sierra Sciences is the best place to have a look at what you're doing. Anywhere else that you want to direct people to? Your books, you've got a couple of books out that you've put out.
I haven't been keeping those books available because they never sold very well. And but I essentially, if somebody wants to read it, I just send them a free PDF
copy. There you go. If anyone wants to
dive into
the science. You don't make money out of books. They're more of a calling card than anything else, and to share your knowledge with the world, unless you're super famous, and then you can sell lots of books. But you know, it's the way of the world, I think, is what we've discovered today, and we've got to find ways around all the problems. Dr. Bill, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you, and I can't wait till installment number 2 in the saga.
All right.